Hey YouTube! In my continuing look at the newest granular synths to come to iOS, I am now looking at SpaceCraft, which is probably kind of intimidating looking because it looks weird and sci-fi, but it's actually quite simple, and I imagine this video is going to be quite short because there's not a lot that you need to understand beyond what you see on the screen, because that's it. What you get is a nice sort of display here where you can pick a playhead area on a waveform. And it starts grabbing these little grains. As you see, these little red dots are coming off of this playhead. And as I move it around, we get different types of grains. And we can change the size of the grains with this XY controller in the top left. And we can change the speed by going on the Y-axis of this controller. And immediately next to that is the LFO, but right now I've got this weird sound going on that I want to explore, so let's play with the reverb and filter. We filter with the X control, and we reverb with the Y. So like that is practically like 100% feedback or something like that, but we can cut it out pretty quickly after it plays through the cycle there. It's presently going through playing these notes really fast, so if we bring up the reverb, it's like this one sustained ambient. Now if I bring down the reverb here and play with the LFO by dragging this out here, you see how the dots now are appearing where this dotted line is, and as the LFO is pulling it in, it's pulling that dotted line back close to the playhead. So it's varying where we're getting the grains from exactly. And we can speed that up now with the Y controller here. And now, that's kind of interesting, but we can actually create our own sort of sequenced pattern of things with the sequencer. So this button with the triangle is where this sample's like root note is, which is usually like a C or something like that. And we can play around with that, so we can say, okay, here's this sample playing at its normal tone and speed, and then maybe we want to slow it down a little bit. And now it's bouncing back and forth between those. So now I can add in some more and say, okay, well, let's go up a little bit. All right, let's not do that because that didn't sound too good. Let's try another. And now it's playing these notes as I've been putting them down, so it's not actually doing it in the order that I'm. It's not doing it from left to right. It's doing it based on where I've placed it. So if I put a note up here, see, it goes through that whole loop and then comes back up to the top there. So that gives you some creative freedom. You don't have to worry too much about where things are. You just find a pattern that you like. All right, I really like that. So let's take that now, and we can screw around with the note length again by dragging it out like this. And you'll notice that the sequence that it's playing back has slowed down. It's keeping whatever sequence you've got in time, no matter how long you make the notes, so that when you're playing with the second part here, which we'll get to, they'll always be in sync. So it doesn't matter how long or how short this is, the sequencer is always going to be playing back the notes in time. So even when we take it into like this weird, like chiptune hell, it's doing that, and it's still going to be in sync with the other one. Before we get to that one, though, let me show you the last XY controller that I haven't played with yet. This is kind of a weird one. Like the description of this is that it's pitch going up and down, and then it's ring mod. So you get bigger pitch ranges on the left, and it's more ring mod on the right. So I'll play around with this so you can hear it. The way it sounds, though, it's more like it's a resonance. So this is giving you more of that peak, and if you bring it down, it's like it starts to chop it. So listen to this as I bring it over into the ring mod. Like it's band reject kind of filter, where it's just completely dipping in and removing everything. You can just barely hear some of that. Like if I bring up the reverb, this might sound weird. We'll just bring up a little bit. So that's very interesting. I don't know exactly how useful that is, but it's cool. But if you do bring it over to the left now, it's not cutting so much out, and you can really shift the pitch. But once again, it still feels like it's just cutting everything out. It's less so than, like, okay, here. Alright, we're hearing it fine right now. If I move this all the way to the right, though. Oops, I brought it up while I did that. I guess you can still hear the same frequencies. Oh, that's a weird one. It's fun to play with. I've noticed though that while I'm screwing around with this, a really good tip for doing like really experimental things with this without sounding awful is to just take it way up into max reverb. And now it's like totally just out there in space, and that gives you time to now tweak it live, and you can just listen to what's happening. And maybe find some place you want to accentuate, and then bring it back in by reducing the reverb. You can kind of get the same effect if you do these really long sustained notes, but I find that the reverb is the best way to hide you screwing around to find something new. So that's kind of cool. Let's take down that one and bring in the second one for now. This is going to be weird. It's going to take a while to build up here. Like, there's just all kinds of organic weirdness there. Bringing up the reverb just enough to make that kind of interesting and tickling the eardrums. And right now you see that it's on these really big slow notes. So if you're looking for that kind of oddly digital, organic, sort of granular weirdness, you can definitely do that in here. I should mention that right now both of these samples that I'm using are included with the app. Like, I thought that was important to show that this is what you get with the app. It has these samples for you to immediately start to play with. It's really, really easy to import your own sounds into this. It's got the whole files app support thing, so yeah. This is what you get, but you can easily add to it. And in my next video, I'll show you how to make some interesting sort of texture-rich samples for use in these. So let's take that right now and move the playhead around to find some entirely new way of playing with this. All right, I'm gonna zoom in. I heard something. Oh shit! I double tapped. There was something in here that was really good. There it is. The Y controller on the waveform here is volume. As you see, this actually moves directly with the volume slider on the side. So right now it's playing through a sequence that's just up and down really low. So I really like that. This is it's a bass line that ends with this. Jesus, that took on like this mad urgency. The latest update adds automation via AUV3, so if you've got this in an AUV3 host, you can now do things like map this control and say, okay, play this for a while, and then bring it into this weird hellscape. And I've been playing with it in these slow motions, but you could also do like taps to dramatically alter it. All right, so let's see how these two are going to sound together. I'm curious myself. So let's bring in this one first. So, although they're playing entirely different types of sequences, like this is the top one's doing a sequence of 4, the bottom one's doing a sequence of 7, and they've got different note lengths, they're staying in time, which is great. Like you could just completely go to town screwing around with this, and it's always going to keep both of the samples playing in time, which is great. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Like I said, it's going to be a short one because there's not much to it, but it's a lot of fun. Thank you very much to all my Patreon patrons for making these videos possible. Take it easy, folks.